This is Michael Cowen, and welcome to Trial Lawyer Nation.
You are the leader in the courtroom, and you want the jury to be looking to you for the answers.
When you figure out your theory, never deviate.
You want the facts to be consistent, complete, and credible.
The defense has no problem running out the clock. Delay is the friend of the defense.
It's tough to grow a firm by trying to hold on and micromanage.
You've got to front load a simple structure for jurors to be able to hold on to.
What types of creative things can we do as lawyers, even though we don't have a trial setting?
Whatever you've got to do to make it real, you've got to do to make it real. But the person who needs convincing is you.
Welcome to the award-winning podcast, Trial Lawyer Nation, your source to win bigger verdicts, get more cases, and manage your law firm. And now, here's your host, noteworthy author, sought-after speaker, and renowned trial lawyer, Michael Cowen.
Trial Lawyer Nation is brought to you by LawPods. LawPods is the company that produces these podcasts. They make my life so easy. All I have to do is show up and talk, and they do all the recording, making sure it sounds good, the editing, the putting out clips for social media. If you are thinking about doing your own podcast, I highly recommend LawPods. We're going to start a new feature on this podcast. It's Ask Michael and Mallory Anything. If you have anything you'd like to ask either Mallory or me, we're going to start doing an episode every couple months where we're going to answer your questions. So just send them in to me at michael@cowenlaw.com, and Mallory and I will answer them. Anything from, legal strategy, marketing management, anything else in life you want to talk about, we'll be glad to talk about it with you. Again, Ask Michael and Mallory Anything. Just send us an email. We'll be glad to answer your questions. Today on Trial Lawyer Nation, I'm joined by my good friend who's a lawyer and also the Chief Technology Officer for Begum Law Group, Leon Dacbert. Leon, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working on a transition between case management software systems, and you've been taking up the load as Chief Technology Officer at Begum Law Group and now temporarily for Begum & Cowen, and I really appreciate that. And it's such an interesting process. I thought it would be useful to talk about it because some people have thought about, do I want to get a case management software system? Do I want to switch systems and go on to all that? So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course. I'm more than happy to be here. Thanks, Michael.
And before we dive in, I want to say a thank you to our sponsor, LawPods. LawPods produces this podcast for us. They make it easy. All you and I have to do is talk. They do all the editing, making the clips for social media, making sure we sound good, interrupting us if we don't, and they are great to work with. So if you ever want to do a podcast, I highly recommend LawPods. So let's get back into this. So let's talk a little bit about your background. How did you get into becoming a Chief Technology Officer as well as a lawyer?
Well, yeah, I was actually thinking about that last night, Michael. And throughout my life, I've come to find out that I just like to know how things work. And that passion, that pursuit of understanding how things work has kind of led me throughout my life of how the computers work when I was young. When I was in like 5th or 6th grade, I had a laptop and tinkering with that. I got an iPhone, and then my first job out of high school was actually working at Apple Retail. I learned, I'm still practicing things I've learned in that experience. Then I wanted to know how finances works. I got a finance major at Trinity. I wanted to know how the law worked. So I went to law school at St. Mary's and found myself also with personal injury with Alex Begum being my brother-in-law. He's always I've been seeing him, what he was doing, and found that pretty interesting. Especially I was a kind of a car wreck victim myself back, a dozen years ago. So and going through that experience, I kind of perked an interest in law, and that's how I wound up there. And to answer to your question of how I ended up as CTO, I was always kind of the family tech guy, right? And people would call me for this or that. And we had a little project, but we wanted to get some client feedback. And so I was doing some litigation for Alex, Begum Law Group. And I implemented some software to get some feedback from our clients through different stages of the process. worked out, rolled it out, got it done. Then the next step was intakes. How do we get an inbox from all of our leads and get the API configurations all into one place? Got that implemented, rolled it out. The next natural progression was, hey, we want to go cloud for our case management. And that ever since that project is still going on today, and it's kind of consumed my time to the point where I had to kind of put a pause to my daily litigation work and do full-time kind of the CTO stuff.
You know, the traditional path is usually to get a tech person to do the Chief Technology Officer in software implementation rather than a lawyer. What do you think the pluses and minuses of having a kind of a techie lawyer versus a techie who's non-lawyer leading the charge on this?
Right. So I'll start with the minus. Right, is I don't program. Right, I don't know code very well. I know how to go through it, look at it, but produce it. Don't ask me how to do that. I don't know how to do that. The positives though is we all have pipelines, right? A case has a life cycle.
What do you mean by pipeline?
Yeah, a pipeline is kind of a beginning to end process of. It's going to be like the intake, and then property damage for a motor vehicle crash, and then you have the treatment, you have the demand, possible litigation, and resolution. Right, that's an example of a pipeline altogether.
Yeah, I think that is important because one struggle I've had in working with vendors on implementing case management software is I've had non-lawyers and they don't get it. They don't get the way we do things. And sometimes like, well, that's how this other firm does it. I said, yeah, that other firm is a high volume pre-litigation firm that doesn't do much litigation. They're going to have a very different life cycle of their cases and wants and needs than what I have. And I remember like when I was first getting my dashboards, like, well, we want to tell you how many cases in each city you have signed up or how many like, I don't care about that. For my practice, I can see how other people that would be interesting. For referral-based practice, it's not particularly useful. There's other data, like what the referral source was very useful. What city or what county it happened to be in wasn't, because I'm not making spending decisions based on mass marketing for that firm. So, I found like a lot of frustration working with people trying to get them to build what I want and not understanding what I want.
Right.
So I can see how that could be an advantage.
One other advantage on that, Michael, is that through the process, I kind of had to advocate for our firm and getting exactly what we wanted, right? And instead of going through their own pipeline and kind of ushering us through, with the way the usuals would happen. And I had to kind of get my advocacy on and really passionately, respectfully, explain to them that our why is not their why.
Yep. Yeah, I've had to respectfully threaten to have some podcast episodes about our vendor a couple times to get them to keep some of their promises. So before I dive into case management software, it's something you said was really interesting to me. You said you developed something to get client feedback. Tell me about that.
Right. So we wanted to get client feedback based on the life cycle of a case. Again, intake is one, property damage is another, treatment, and then the resolution of the case. Those are the 4 stages we wanted to get touched on. And we looked through some software, and one of them was Zonka Feedback. It's a small company, and they are very passionate about what they do. We unfortunately don't use them today. We went on to Salesforce and Litify, but if they are the perfect out-of-the-box product and for feedback of sorts. So you could do it manually, have somebody call the client, or you could have an automatic text be sent out.
How do you spell Zonka?
Zonka.
Zonka.
Z is in zebra, O, N as in Nancy, K, A. Zonka. Yeah.
And that's like I guess software you can program to automatically either remind somebody or to send surveys to your clients at certain points in the case?
Right. So, yes. So back when that was implemented, we actually had Needles, which is kind of a Web 1.0 older software that we could not connect to Zonka directly, but we were able to have some checklist items in Needles that would tell somebody, hey, go to Zonka and conduct a survey.
And does Zonka integrate with any of the case management systems that are on the cloud?
They do. And in fact, I looked at their Salesforce integration, and I literally told them, you need to teach other vendors how to do Salesforce integration because it was so simple.
So were you involved in choosing the new case? You were moving from the old Needles that wasn't even on the cloud, the old Needles that was hosted on a server. You all wanted to move to the cloud. Were you involved in selecting the software?
I was kind of auxiliary to that. Victoria Switzer, or COO, was really the leading the charge there. She came from a firm where they did have a cloud, some sort of software. And we just wanted to look at the vendors and see what they can offer and what flexibilities they offered for a long-term partner. Because these contracts that we were signing are not short.
So what are some things you advise us to look at if we're looking at either first going into having case management software, or we're frustrated with our current provider and we're thinking about switching? What is your recommendation for that search process?
So one part that I found interesting is, what environment are you walking into, right? Like, meaning if I'm buying this platform that's in front of me, what kind of vendors out there are there to support it? What kind of developers are out there to support it? And the reason I mentioned that is because we ended up going with Litify, which is based on a Salesforce product. And Salesforce, I think everybody knows what Salesforce is. If not, it's
no, we don't. Go ahead and explain it.
Okay, sorry. But Salesforce is a product that's been developed over probably 12 to 15 years now, and they're publicly traded, giant company. Most of the S&P 500 companies use them at some point. I know some of these large insurance firms actually use Salesforce as well. It's just a giant platform that a lot of corporations are behind. And since there's a lot of money behind it, there's a giant ecosystem that Salesforce has around them for developers, vendors, the possibilities ultimately of what you can do.
Each year, the law firm of Cowen Rodriguez Peacock pays millions of dollars in co-counsel fees to attorneys nationwide on trucking and commercial vehicle cases. If you have an injury case involving death or catastrophic injuries and would like to partner with our firm, please contact us by calling 210-941-1301 to discuss the case in detail and see where we can add value in a partnership. And now, back to the show.
So what's it like working with the salespeople that are trying to sell you this product? Did they give you exactly what you need out of the box?
No, so these sales people that are going to be coming in front of you, coming to your office, Zoom, they're going to be showing you the best product that they have developed, and their demo that they've worked over and over, and they know how to give a polished product presentation. Having somebody who's on your side, who's able to pick apart and get to the how, right, is really valuable to be able to understand what's under the hood, essentially. There's a saying in sales, actually, that I've heard is, close a deal, we'll figure out the rest later.
Yep.
Right. And it's sort of difficult to get around that. But one thing that I've learned is get a demo account. And if they don't want to give you a demo account, don't do business with them.
That's true, because we almost went to the cloud with one product that was, we had their server-based product, and they wanted us to go to their cloud-based product, and they did not want to give me what we call a sandbox or a demo, and I insisted on it, and the product, frankly, didn't work.
Right.
It did not do what they said it did, and more importantly, it did not have many of the features that we had in the server-based product that were really essential for the way we ran our practice.
Right.
And I was such a pain, I actually eventually talked to the coders, and they said, well, the product is too customizable right now and too hard to support, so we want everyone to run it the same way. I'm like, well, your tagline was you were the customizable software right, for 20-something years. That's how you built your business. And that business is, unfortunately, really, my understanding is they've got about 15, 20% of the number of users they used to have before they went to the cloud. I don't want to get sued, so I'm not naming names, but if anyone knows me personally, they know how much I hate, because I loved the original product so much, and then their new cloud-based product I hate so much. and just all the lies I was told. I mean, I was talking to vice president level people. They would tell me things and they just wouldn't be true. And then I talked to the tech people and they say, no, that's not true. It just was a very, very frustrating experience. But I'm glad that, we demanded that because we would have gotten stuck with a product that didn't work and would have caused great harm to our business.
Well, good thing you had the sandbox. I mean, without that sandbox, and I did. By the way, this is a lesson learned on experience. There was a product, I can't remember what it is, but I did not get a demo, and I regretted it. Kind of put it in my book of rules from here on out.
Absolutely. The other thing I found, when I was with the software we're currently with, and I'm relatively happy with it. It does what we need, but it didn't do what we needed out of the box. So we had all these sales meetings, and we're a bigger account, so we're meeting with people pretty high up in the company, and they're showing us all this really cool stuff it can do, and we're brainstorming, and I'm all excited. Signed the contract, and then I find out that I just get like a blank software system that we have to program ourselves with no support. And I'm like, then we're paying, by the month for something useless that, and we, like, again, I think if I didn't have the Trial Lawyer Nation platform, that problem wouldn't have been fixed, but we still had to spend a lot of money to, basically program out the software they sent us, because they just kind of sent us like they basically sold me a toolbox and said, now you need to go learn how to use these tools and learn how to build software. I'm like, I'm a freaking lawyer. I don't want to build software.
Right, exactly, Michael. And I'm glad you brought that up. So that actual setup is not uncommon. There's always a platform, and then there's always an implementer. Sometimes the implementer is in-house with the platform you're with. More often, that implementer is outside of the platform. So the platform guys are selling you the monthly users, and they're just kind of hands off. Say, hey, talk to your implementer. And then the implementer is the people that you're actually gonna work with every day, every week to get projects done and out the door.
And that's what we had to do. And I know that's something you guys have had to do too with Begum Law Group, and now with our Begum and Cowen, is actually we buy the software from one company and then we have to hire a different company to make the software work, which seems insane to me. It seems absolutely nuts to me, but it's, I guess, what you have to do now.
Yeah, it is. I think it's perhaps a liability thing of, we're showing this, the implementation off somebody else, not the product, right? But let me tell you, so the counter to that of, why that is the best setup is we want a product to our why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do we have the product that we have, and why do we have it set up the way we have it? The only way to really do that is to have a platform that you could bend over backwards.
Yep.
The problem with that is there's so many options and so many ways to do something that you do need a professional there to really guide you along on how to get you exactly what you want. Like another platform like Clio or some other, not to call them out, but some other platform that's a little more, perhaps not as many options. They don't have an implementation team, but there's not as many options to get what you do every day.
Okay, so you have these really powerful software systems that can do a million different things in a million different ways. How do you figure out what you want it to do? Do you try to get everything at once and every possible feature before you launch, or?
No. So it's pretty tempting to do that, right? You get the sales presentation to show you the beautiful dashboards, beautiful ways to do your business, and they give you the toolbox and say go, right? But all those dashboards are vital, and I can't say this enough, are vital to make sure that they're built on data that is correct and real, because you want your cloud management system to be the source of truth. And that requires a lot of work on the back end to make sure we get right.
Okay. What are dashboards?
Yeah. So dashboards are kind of like a scoreboard, right? You're at a basketball game. You see the points, how many the San Antonio Spurs have versus like the Warriors. And then you have, if you look at the scoreboard, you can see each person's that's on the court, points, rebounds, steals, all that. It's the same thing for a law firm. You can see your how much your year-to-date gross revenue is, what your how many cases you have, what inventory you have in terms of cases and case value. It's kind of like a one-stop shop of what you want to see every day to run your business.
And what do you mean by you have to make sure that the information on the dashboards is based on data that's, quote, correct and real, unquote?
Right. So data entry in the tech world is everybody's Achilles heel, right? In fact, I think I was listening to another Brian Glass, I believe, and y'all were talking about somebody was checking something off that they didn't do.
Yeah,
that's bad data, right? And how do we get around that? You don't want to make a decision based on bad data, because that inherently will be a bad decision.
How do you make sure that your data is correct and real? That people are actually entering the data, one, and then two, that they're telling the truth and not making mistakes.
Right. So there's this give and take strategy I do. And it's been working out really well. That is, you give something of value to the user, they will use it to their benefit. And since they're using it to their benefit and giving you correct data, now I'm getting correct data on the high level items. I'll give you an example. We have a medical submission pipeline we put together. And it used to be you put an email together with about 15, 20 items that are going to be like the property damage amount, the damages of the case, how much is owed, the type of case it was, the client's name, etc. Pretty long email. And that these medical coordinators had to actually type out their own, send it out to management, get the case assigned, and go from there. What we did was we took all those data points that they were retyping out, and generated that email automatically. Saved them, 10, 15 minutes. And just by giving them that 10, 15 minutes value, they're using it and happy to use it. And now we can get some actual data on how long does it take from when the client's done treating to when the medical breakdown is submitted. And the amount of time now is actually kind of correct.
So I want to go back, kind of revisit earlier question, which is, okay, so you're going to get ready to transition or start, and you've got a million things you could do. How do you decide what to do? As far as like what features, what programs, what documents you're going to program in at the beginning?
Sure. So you need to take a good hard look at what we do today, right?
Yeah.
What are the ways we submit a medical breakdown? What are the ways we handle litigation today, right? And just copy that. Literally copy what you're doing today and put it into the cloud, into whatever system you pick. The reason I say that is because that data is there, right? And I guarantee you're going to go through that data and start doing the mapping on the fields, and you'll realize, oh, hold on, that field is not being used correctly, right? And you'll know that with this new cloud software you're doing, because you could do some reporting on that. And since the approach is just to copy it over, that transition on go live date and when everyone has to keep using the new software will be more natural, and you'll have more buy-in. So the last thing you need is to have a new case management software and new way to do things.
Yeah, and if you can't do what you could do yesterday, it's really frustrating. And then if you have to start learning a bunch of new things to do in addition to new software, it's frustrating. So I could see the wisdom of starting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you build out your roadmap of like what you want to do next, your users will tell you.
What do you mean by that?
So I've made it a real point over at Begum Law Group and now Begum Cowen to really listen to our users. They will tell you what they need. And if you don't, and the thing is, if you don't at least listen to them, they'll stop telling you.
Yeah.
Right. But if you listen to them and you implement some of the changes that they're suggesting, and explain to the people that like, hey, I can't submit this feature, I can't create this thing, but I could show you how to do it differently. Or, hey, the property damage adjuster should live on the insurance tab. Great idea. Let's do that. It's done overnight. And when they see that change, they have a sense of like, wow, like I made something better.
Yeah.
And that's just that once you get the flywheel of feedback, and I call them cycles, right? Like you get the feedback, you implement the feedback. So the more cycles you have, eventually after 500 cycles, 1,000 cycles, you're going to have a razor sharp case management system with the data that people actually care about in front of them.
How do you handle what I call the resistors? So people are like, well, I like the old way. Why do we have to do this? I don't like this new way. Let's stop doing the new way.
Yeah, there's always going to be that. And people, frankly, as we all know, hate change. That's why just briefly going back to copy what you do today, that definitely helps that hedge that. Now, the people who just don't want to do the change and we start giving them dashboards on like, hey, these are your goals, and they stop meeting them, they'll eventually, frankly, just weed themselves out.
Yeah.
One way or another. And that's okay, right? Is there a choice? But as it's a failure if they were telling me like, look, I don't like the way it's done. It's just not done right. If it was done the other way, it's a failure that if I don't listen to them.
Right.
Right. Because maybe they have a good idea. Right. But if it's just resistance, just to say, I'm not doing this, that's another situation. That's another issue.
Yeah. Have you read any of the the book, like No Ego Reality-Based Rules of the Workplace by Cy Wakeman?
Yeah. So it's one of the books that we hand out to the firm. Frankly, and it's a good book.
Yeah, I love what Cy says, like, how are we going to make this work? And if they're being positive and you're working together on how to make it work, great. But it's like, how are you going to make this work? And if not, what is your plan for getting another job? Because there's no third option. It's like, you can work together with us to make it work this way, or you can work somewhere else. But you can't just say, I'm not going to implement this new system because we made a decision as a firm to implement this new system, and you can't just opt out of it.
Right.
And I think that's a big mindset that we need to get.
It is. And I just want to, one more thing, Michael, on that is Begum Law, we started conversations with people early before the transition. I'm talking about 3-4 months before we went live with Litify. And we had something called Litify Lunch, which we sat down with people, the firm bought lunch, and we sat down and asked them, like, what are we scared about? What's going on? Do you have any questions at all for me? And we answered them. And I think that really did help, like, the transition of, and starting how it's laying the foundation of like, we're here to listen to you. And that really helped on Go Live. We didn't have much of a problem in terms of people just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, I'm not doing this.
Good. Other than the Litify lunches, what else did you do to prepare for the transition from what you had to Litify?
So there's a Litify training course. It's online. We made everyone do. Kind of lays the foundation of what Litify can do. And then we also made custom videos on our why, right? How do we do things ourselves? One of the things that we did was a case expense button, right? Litify out of the box, the toolbox, right? You have to create transaction and expense separately. Kind of not the best way to do things, right? So create a button. And we created that button to create an expense depending on what law firm, what's handling the case, and correctly created the transaction expense for people. And it's kind of funny, off of that one button, everyone's always telling me, oh, I want a button. I want a button. Oh, he got a button. I want a button, right? It's kind of gotten to a funny thing where, people just were able to build these custom solutions on these repeated tasks that people do every day. And I don't know why, but it's just a lot of fun for me to do.
Good. Did you have to do any kind of data? I know when we went over, we had to do a lot of data cleanup and then make a decision like how far back were we going to make sure our data was good when we transfer over. If you don't want to transfer bad data, so you want to make sure and go back and look at the data entry on what you had, make sure things were in the right fields. Did you all do that?
We did. So we actually made the decision to kind of bring over everything and map everything over, because Salesforce makes it so easy just to get rid of a field from page layout and stop using it. And we made a decision early on that we'd rather have the data than not have it at all. And there are some really interesting ways of cleaning up the data if we needed to.
So then once you went live, what did you do to make sure people, were implementing it and knew what they were doing?
So we have a object called and when I say object, I mean like a tab. A tab. We have a tab called the Issues tab, right? And no matter where you are in the system, you're able to submit an issue, and you can put a screenshot to it. We know what you were looking at based on the hyperlink, etc. And that issues list, we had about over a 2-month period, about 500.
Wow.
But we were able to get through them all, and we made we were through that pressure. We were able to come out with a completely different looking system than when we went live, but a better one. And Sikich is our partner, implementation partner on that, and they give us about 2 weeks of hyper care support. That if the whole thing's on fire, if we are able to define the problem, they are able to fix the problem.
Oh wow!
Consistently, and I mean their hyper care system is incredible.
So once you get, you've got the system, your people more or less know how to use it. It can do what the old system does. How do you decide now? What are the next steps for improving the system?
Right. So that comes from both ends, from the users and from the owners of the firm. Right. Alex Begum is incredible at saying, "Hey, I want to have this, so I can make a better decision for that." He kind of gives me the overarching goal, and it's my job to really bridge the gap and make sure that data is correct on the implementation, right? And the way I make sure that data is correct is giving something of value to the user for that process or that new KPI.
What's a KPI?
Key performance indicator, and that kind of we try to boil things down all to one or two or three KPIs that per position.
And why do you want to have key performance indicators for every position?
Because when you wake up, have your coffee, sit down at your desk, you want to see we want to give people a way to measure and a way to say, hey, these are the things you should be doing throughout the day, right? And is that getting your medical breakdown submitted within 45 days of the client done treating? If that number's staring at you want to improve on it, you have some action items that you can come up with right away.
So you've implemented a new case management software system in 2 law firms.
That's right.
Begum Law Group and Vriel and Begum. Now you're working on my half-owned law firm, Begum and Cowen. If you could do it all over again, let's say nightmare scenario, Alex and I get head injuries and decide that we're going to switch software platforms again next year. Not going to do that, I promise. But what would you do different if you could do it all over again?
So we try to do integrations at the very beginning. DocuSign, RingCentral, and I think one more, but it was not a good idea.
Why?
Because there was too many changes, and when you're in the middle of transitioning your case management software, truly switching your source of truth, you don't want any distractions.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. You it's kind of the integrity of, I think, the firm, because the source of truth should lie only in one place so that it's accessible to everybody. And if that breaks down, we have a real big problem.
So what is it about trying to implement a bunch of other integrations? First of all, what are integrations?
So integrations are things like different softwares. Like, for example, I want to sync my QuickBooks with Litify. And there's something called an API. And I'm not sure what API stands for, actually. But API is a set of data you could link between 2 different platforms. And you could sync that data however you want. You just need to develop it out and get it done.
And I just Googled it. An API is an application programming interface. So it just lets one program talk to another one, basically, or work with each other.
That's right. Yeah. Just hold off on that. Get your foundation set. Focus all your resources on your case management system for the first 3 months at least, and then start, dreaming of would it be great if we had contracts related to each case and it was all tab, and it was all there. And we could get the settlement breakdown signed and from Litify, right? Like, that would be great. You just don't have the time to vet vendors, vet implementations, go through demos, and have demo accounts to be able to test the implementation. All your attention and resources need to be on the platform you are on for at least 3 months.
So what do you want to do in your future? I mean, do you want to go back to litigating PI cases? Do you want to explore more technology? Some hybrid? What's next for you?
I love litigation. It's why I did personal injury. I love being able to help people through this, this personal injury stuff. Like, what sort of drives me is, like I said, I was in a car wreck. I've actually 2 of them, about a dozen years ago or so, and I remember being, kind of knocked out and being not. And I remember being kind of like thrown into the water and not knowing what's going on. And, good thing my brother-in-law, Alex Begum, was able to help me out on that, right? And him and his staff was able to kind of guide me through that and make sure, that I was taken care of. That experience is what kind of drives me through personal injury. It's making sure it's provide clarity on the why, on what's going on with you and your case, and how would we help you the best way possible, get you out of this and get this behind you. That's what drives me. And that's what also drives me on this technology, because if we have better technology, a better client experience, provides more clarity to the client and to the employees, everyone's better for it.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, is making the technology create a better experience for the clients and the employees, instead of like one more extra task to do every day for the employees.
Exactly. It's truly attrition. It's truly trying to just get you have your water and you boil it down to its core, it's the most important factors.
Well, sounds great. Well, Leon, thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed working with you on this, and I'm hoping our listeners are getting something out of it, because we all do need to implement a good case management software system that actually makes our employee and client experience better rather than worse. And I appreciate your efforts and look forward to not just working with you on the technology, but then litigating with you once you can take the CTO hat off and join us back in the courtroom.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed it.
And thank everyone else that join us next time on Trial Lawyer Nation.
Thank you for joining us on Trial Lawyer Nation. I hope you enjoyed our show. If you'd like to receive updates, insider information, and more from Trial Lawyer Nation, sign up for our mailing list at triallawyernation.com. You can also visit our episodes page on the website for show notes and direct links to any resources in this or any past episode. To help more attorneys find our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on any of our social media outlets. If you'd like access to exclusive, plaintiff lawyer-only content and live monthly discussions with me, send a request to join the Trial Lawyer Nation Insider Circle Facebook group. Thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to having you with us next time on Trial Lawyer Nation.
Each year, the law firm of Cowen Rodriguez Peacock pays millions of dollars in co-counsel fees to attorneys nationwide on trucking and commercial vehicle cases. If you have an injury case involving death or catastrophic injuries and would like to partner with our firm, please contact us by calling 210-941-1301 to discuss the case in detail and see where we can add value in a partnership. This podcast has been hosted by Michael Cowen and is not intended to, nor does it create the attorney-client privilege between our host, guest, and any listener for any reason. Content from the podcast is not to be interpreted as legal advice. All thoughts and opinions expressed herein are only those from which they came.